Alrighty guys, welcome back to Star Wars Review. Today I'm reviewing Star Wars Ahsoka Part 3 Time to Fly, which was written by Dave Filoni and directed by Steph Green, and was released on August 29th, 2023, which I liked the episode. I do think it was a little short. I just wish it was just a little longer, and I do wish we got a little bit more with the, bigger story about this other galaxy. But other than that, I thought there was some great scenes between Ahsoka and Sabine, and also Hera and the New Republic. And then the second half of the episode had a lot of great dogfighting space action, which I really enjoyed. That was some of my favorite stuff from the episode. Also, I do wish we got maybe a little bit more from the villains, mainly Balin, as he barely appears in this episode, and the others are just kind of more there going after Ahsoka and Sabine. But we do see some returning characters like Mon Mothma. Obviously, her moment, we only see her as a hologram, but, it is a more, at least somewhat bigger scene, not just a quick little thing. And I'm assuming this is probably all we're going to see of her in the episode, or the series, I mean. But we also see Jason Sindola for the first time, which his hair is still green, but a very dark green, which is almost brown, so that's neat. And that's also the only thing what is actually green about him, which, I think he just looks a lot better than he does at the end of Rebels. He looks like a normal little boy instead of like a weird dork like he does at the end of Star Wars Rebels. But it's a very quick scene he appears in, so we don't get much of him. But the episode starts with Sabine training with Hu Yang with she has like a stick, and Hu Yang has these like lightsaber flashlight looking thingies which have like some hologram thingy coming out which detect where Sabine is hitting them, which I thought was neat. But Ahsoka comes in and wants to do a different lesson by using a method called Satachi, which Hu Yang doesn't agree with Ahsoka, thinking Sabine isn't ready. And Sabine also tells Ahsoka what Hu Yang told her in the last episode of how she's the worst candidate to be a Jedi ever, which, Ahsoka's a little upset at Hu Yang for, telling her that. But we see Ahsoka go through with her, plan, which is to do Zatoichi, which is Sabine has to put on one of those helmets which can't see out of a blast helmet, maybe, is that what it's called? We see it in A New Hope, and Obi-Wan is teaching Luke how to kind of block the blaster bolts from the training droid, that kind of helmet. And so it's for Sabine to use the presence of the Force instead of her eyes to help her fight. Which we also see Ahsoka tell Sabine that her skills with a weapon are good because of her Mandalorian upbringing, but that won't be enough, for the enemies they're up against, so she needs to kind of connect with the Force more. And so we see them duel while Sabine can't see, which at first we see her mostly just kind of wailing around, but eventually she does start to get some hits in, but Ahsoka is still able to take her down, which, throughout all this we see Sabine maybe letting her anger and frustration get the best of her, which Ahsoka tells her that it, might give her quick power, but it will ultimately unbalance her, and so she will fail. But she then tells Sabine to go again, and then it cuts over to the New Republic fleet, where we see Hera talking with Chancellor Mon Mothma and some other senators, including Hamato Ziono, the senator from Hazian Prime, who we originally saw in the animated series Star Wars Resistance, which I think in that series we only see him as a hologram. In this episode we only see him as a hologram, but he was the father of the main character Kazuto Ziono in that series. But in the conversation we see Hera and Mothma do a little catching up about their lives and whatnot, but Ziono cuts in telling them to get to the point. So Hera tells them about what went down on Corellia, and that there was Imperial loyalists there working for Morgan Elsbeth, and even though everyone was arrested, Hera tells them that she believes it's part of a bigger operation than just what was on Corellia, and that it involves Thrawn, which shocks Mothma. And so Hera asks to take a task force to the Dab system to investigate it, which Ziono jumps in, saying that this is just a personal quest for Hera to take resources away from the New Republic to find Ezra Bridger, which we then see Hera kind of go off on him, asking if he was in the war, which he says no, which she responds by saying, so you waited to see who came out on top while you just sat there? which then there's a little pause as Xiono doesn't respond, but some of the other senators chime in, which they don't see the threat of Thrawn, as, the remaining Imperial holdouts are scattered throughout the galaxy and whatnot, which Hera tells them that if Thrawn is alive and does return, he'll be able to kind of take all those holdouts and kind of lead them and control them and, revive the Empire. And she talks about how Thrawn is like no other Imperial officer. And so she says that she's asking them to help her stop another war, which Xiono says that Thrawn is dead and so is Ezra, which makes Hera snap, telling him he doesn't know that, which Mothma then asks Hera to give her and the senators a moment to speak alone. So Hera leaves, which I really like this moment, getting a little tiny glimpse into not only Mothma but New Republic Senate. I would like to see this, on a bigger scale, maybe a moment on, in the Imperial Senate building and whatnot, or, while the Senate is actually full on in session. I do like those moments, so I would like something a little more, but I do like this moment. And, I liked Hera and Xiono going at each other. But afterwards in the hallway, Jacen comes running up to Hera, asking her if it's true that Aunt Sabine is training to become a Jedi, which Hera asks him where he heard that from, which he says Chopper, which Chopper then does his thing where he's like, saying shit. Which, Chopper's probably a really bad role model for Jacen to have, but it is funny. But Jacen says he wants to be a Jedi also, which Hera says that she knows, and she pats him on the shoulder, probably thinking back on Kanan, which I am surprised they really haven't directly mentioned Kanan yet. But I am excited to get more of Jacen and to see his relationship with Hera and whatnot. But it then cuts back to Ahsoka and Sabine, which we see them just talking. They talk about, connection to the Force and whatnot, which I really enjoyed all this. Seeing Sabine say, she can't feel it, which Ahsoka tells her that the Force resides in everyone. But, Sabine asks, why doesn't everyone use it then? Which Ahsoka says that talent plays a factor, but training and focus play a big role also. And so she tells Sabine to kind of open up and try, something small, which we see them drinking from some cups at this point. So, Ahsoka tells her to, try it on the cup. So we see her start to attempt that as Ahsoka heads to the cockpit to talk with Huyang, which they talk about Sabine, and, Ahsoka does kind of tell Huyang off a little bit for what he told her, told Sabine beforehand, which, he says it's the truth, and that Sabine wouldn't have been accepted into the Jedi Order. But they also talk about Mandalorian Jedis and how there's been very few of them, which obviously we know of Tar Vizsla, who created the Darksaber, and I guess Grogu also. But I do wonder what other Mandalorian Jedis there could have been. But Ahsoka also talks about needing Sabine to not be a Jedi, but herself, which Huyang says, I do suppose you come from a long line of non-traditional Jedi, which I like that moment. But we then see Sabine trying to, use the Force on the cup, but, struggles to do so. And during it gets interrupted by Ahsoka because Hera is calling in, which I like the joke of Sabine telling the cup that they won this round, and it cuts back to a shot of the cup, like a, reaction shot of what Sabine said. So I found that funny. But we then see them speaking with Hera, who tells them that the New Republic won't be helping them out. But before really anything else can be explained, the signal cuts out as they've entered the Denab system, and their comms are jammed. So they drop out of hyperspace and head towards Cetos. But they get found by some fighter ships, 2 of them being piloted by Shin and Marok. So we see Sabine head to the gunner seat while Ahsoka flies. But Huyang also scans an object above Cetos. So, he's kind of trying to figure out what that is. But during the dogfight, we see Huyang argue with Ahsoka, about, how they're doing a bunch of stuff wrong. Which makes Ahsoka realize that her and Sabine kind of need to work together. So they start doing that, and they start taking out the ships, which they then get closer to Cetos, where they see the Eye of Sion, which Huyang thinks it's a hyperspace ring. So they move in closer so Huyang can get a better scan on it. But because of that, they start getting shot at by the hyperspace ring, and the moment Hu Yang completes the scan, they get, the Eye of Sion direct hits the shuttle, so kind of knocks the ship out. Which I like the moment for the villains, as Morgan tells Shin that, I think it was right beforehand that Morgan tells her that, like, I got this. And then, right when she does it, she's like, oh, yes, I defeated him. And then Shin tells Morgan that, no, you didn't. And then she goes after the shuttle. I enjoyed that moment. But we then see Ahsoka and Sabine trying to get the ship back online. But, they need time to do so. So we see Ahsoka go out into space in a spacesuit to distract the ships, which works. And was pretty cool. I quite liked that moment. But even though, like, the bad guys could have just shot the ship instead of shooting at Ahsoka. But like I said, it was cool. Felt like something taken directly out of the Clone Wars or Rebels, as we did see a lot more actual going out in space scenes in that than really any other Star Wars. Really anything in live action Star Wars. But Sabine gets the ship back on and picks Ahsoka up, and so they head down to the surface of the planet, where they run into some Purrgil, which they're kind of taken aback by them, but they end up using the Purrgil to kind of get away from Shin and Marok, and then they fly down to the surface into this forest, which we see Hu Yang wake up and ask, what he missed, which they both say that they almost died multiple times, which Hu Yang is like, yes, standard operating procedures, which I found funny. But once they land, they have to shut off all the power, including Hu Yang, and wait for, Marok and Shin to fly by, which they eventually do. And we see Shin and Marok talking to each other to kind of regroup. But we see that they obviously know that they're hiding in the forest. But after that, we see Ahsoka and Sabine then power back up the ship and Hu Yang, which, we see them talk about the Purrgil and whatnot, and how Sabine hasn't seen them since the day Ezra disappeared. But Hu Yang then shows them the scans of the hyperspace ring, showing them the hyperdrives and how the last one is currently being installed, but it will soon be completed, and that it will be powerful enough to make a jump to another galaxy, if they know the coordinates. And he talks about the Purrgil and their migration kind of hyperspace trails, which Ahsoka is like, oh, the ones we just saw, which he's like, oh, when? Which I, once again, found that funny. But the episode then ends back with Balin as he tells the grunts to hunt the Jedi down, and then it kind of lingers, the shot lingers on him for a moment, and that's where it ends. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I do wish it was a little longer. Mainly it's because I kind of wanted to get to the other galaxy, and therefore Thrawn and Ezra. But I still liked everything from the episode. I thought the dogfighting space action scenes was great. Honestly, some of the best in a while for live action Star Wars, but I really enjoyed it. But I also liked the training moments of Sabine and Ahsoka, and getting more into how Sabine could use the Force. So I'm very intrigued in where that's all going. I also like the scene with Hera and Mon Mothma and the Senators, and I also felt like the dialogue wasn't as stiff as it was in the first two, so I felt like it loosened up a good bit in this episode. So, all in all, I enjoyed the episode. So far the action has been some of the standout stuff for me in the series, so yeah, but my grade for this episode is going to be a B+, so yeah, but next I'll review episode 4, so you can check that out then. But in the meantime, check out my reviews on the first 2 episodes, all my other Ahsoka videos, and everything else to do, but I've been Star Wars review, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
That's why I'm trying to convince you to help me prevent another one. You and I both know who could help you with this.
She's still just as stubborn as ever.
I bet your master found you difficult at times.
Anakin never got to finish my training. I walked away from him, just like I walked away from Sabine.